Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you too.
Yay, we're here. Technical. Oh, why is it always technical difficulties? But it's sorted now.
Yeah, it's just a little gremlin trying to get in the way, but they're not going to win because we're to it.
Yeah, we've got the light behind us.
That's right. And above us.
And well, I was going to say, and everywhere else around us, I suppose. In and around the lot. Tony, thank you so much for joining us again. It's great to have you back. I love these live chats with you. Absolutely. So just want to say good evening, hello, or good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to everybody who's going to be joining us. Welcome to Menorca Consciousness Group. We're going to be talking with Tony again. It's going to be a regular thing, like as I'm sure most of you know. Tony's over in Luxor, doing air magic, etc. And have I got this right? What's your main site? InSpiral. Yeah, well,
so InSpiralOutLoud is more of the community-based stuff, but my personal site is Tjoni.com. So that's where I'm doing all my writing and coaching and all of that kind of stuff. So that's my main focus at the moment is, getting all the coaching work out there.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing. I love it. I love the sound of it.
Thank you.
So tonight we're going to do part 2 of letting go.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just couldn't get it in, could we? It was like
no, we just couldn't let go of it last time, so we've got to keep going.
Oh well, I'm sure people will start joining us, and if they've got anything to put in, please put your comments and your questions, anything you might have in the chat as we move forward. So
maybe
where do we start?
People to share what they're letting go of at the moment.
That's true. Yeah, hopefully they will. So if anybody's letting go of anything, please let us know. So now then, where do we start? What's this next phase of this? We're going to have to jump on and start covering things, aren't we?
Yeah, we really are. So we were going to do a quick recap on what we're actually letting go of. So let's not recap too much because we'll be here for 5 hours because there's so much to let go. But to me here, it feels like it's really just letting go of the attachment to every single structure without completely dismissing it. So just not really being 100% sold on anything out in the outer world or inner realms as well. And just remaining, like taking the blinkers off and just kind of remaining really open to the information that's coming in, so we can see everything with fresh new eyes, as more and more of the truth of this world and this realm sort of comes to light. So I kind of feel like we're letting go of pretty much everything, all of our preconceived ideas and notions of of the structures that we're in and about ourselves. So that's my little recap. What are you letting go of?
Oh, that's it. I'll go with yours. I'll go with what you've just said. For me, it's kind of just letting go of everything, like you said, everything up to the last moment. It's not that it's not saving us. I think the past is present, as in we can, especially regarding information, awareness, and knowledge, we can instantaneously recall it in any given moment, like we do. We can think about what we did 2 days ago, 2 years ago, etc. All the different experiences we've had, and we do it here in this present. So, in effect, what it's trying to tell us is, try and develop or manifest a clear mind, and in that clarity, many beautiful things can take place. And one of them is we can recall, so to speak, any knowledge or information what we need. Hi Mark, thanks for joining. He's in the Gran Canaria. What on earth are you doing in the Gran Canaria? No, don't tell me. I don't know. I'll just say he's after the sun. It's for the sun. Thanks for joining us, Mark. I hope you're having a great time. So we've got Czech Republic. There was only 3 of us at the minute. Czech Republic, Luxor, Egypt, and Gran Canaria. This has got off to a great start. So anyway, global. Yeah, that's where I am, Tony, with it. It's like just let go of everything, just transform it. And here we go. For me, it's about standing firm in my knowing and presence. And if things come to mind, and let it go. What do you say to that? Hi, Lynn. What do you say to that?
Yeah. So to me, so much of the letting go is the preconceived ideas that we've all kind of been fed. Hi, Lynn. About struggles, about how we create, how we manifest, about the nature of like our relationship to the world, as in we've been sold that it is what it is, regardless of our relationship to it. And the more and more I just feel and experience that is not the case. And so to me, letting go of the structures, it's about, I was talking a lot last time, I think, about the importance of the pure intent. And if we let go of the ideas of how we can generate what we intend, we also kind of break down the limiting beliefs, because if we're trying to use our brains to figure out how to make stuff happen, our left brains can only really function out of what they've experienced before. And we either personally or, you know, around the world, what we've seen is possible. But if we can break down those preconceived ideas about the way that we think things need to happen, then the universe can bring structures in and resources in and people in and the way to get there in that we would have never considered before. And so I'm finding, for instance, you know, at the moment we're in a process of really trying to figure out what is next. Like for my family living here, you know, we need to be somewhere else, at least for a good chunk of the year, just to have a break.
Yeah.
And if I try and get into the space of, you know, looking online and researching like where to go for digital nomads, where are the best places to go and work remotely, all of those kind of things, I get fed a whole bunch of information that actually feels really depressing, because everything I see that's out there, it doesn't fit us at all. And it feels like it's the only way. And instead, I just keep being told to just shut down from all input and just instead tune into a different type of input. So letting go is also letting go of the limitations that are coming to us digitally as well.
Yeah.
And you know, I've been doing a lot of work in the temples lately, and I've been here for, you know, over 3 years and just haven't been in the temples at all. And all of a sudden now it's time to be tuning into that. And I was told very, very clearly, you've got to stop tuning in and tuning into the channels of media and instead tune into the channels of the greater wisdom, and that will direct us without all of the distortion of this. So that's what I feel is one of the benefits of letting go, of really letting the universe do the hard work.
Yeah, because it's easy for the universe to do it, isn't it? Because it's natural state of flow. It's got its own natural rhythm and flow. And for so many centuries, we've been out of sync with it. We've not been synchronizing with it and aligned to it. Just quickly, I like what Mark's put with, and especially when he's like standing firm in his knowing and presence. I think it's so important that we've got to stand firm. We've got to, because that's that center point. The truth is here in that relation to our journey and the universe, so to speak. And with that knowing and presence. And it's like Mark is saying similar to what you've just said. Going with that knowing, aligning with the universe, letting the universe guide our awareness, let it drop or put those droplets of information in. I find the same, Tony. It's like I look online and it's saturated with virtually any subject you wish to look at. And in the end, it's, you go, like you were saying about looking if there's a nomad, place out there, and all of a sudden, boom, your senses are bombarded with all this stuff. And it's like, well, none of this feels right. I don't think it's right. It's not connecting to me. So then we step back, don't we? And go, okay, I'm just going to go into my space. The universe then is really starting to communicate with us, and guiding us and leading us. And what I like when we do that, with that clarity of consciousness, everything becomes more fluid. And even having the conversation about letting go, I often find that with a clear mind, and when we can go with a flow, letting go is part of it. It naturally kind of dissolves behind us, so to speak. We know it doesn't, but there's, it gets transformed by the light of that clarity, or clear light, so to speak. And I find that, stillness is a big point for letting go, because in stillness, the energy of stillness transforms some of the aspects, our thoughts and feelings, etc. But when we're in that moment, similar to yourself, it's like we look at the route we're going to take next, and our ordinary mind goes on this kind of mission. Okay, let me check everything out. Let's get online and try and organize it. And does that right? Is that right? And that connection with the universe, if we're too far from it, then we're going to lead ourselves somewhere where the universe is going, no, you took the wrong direction. We wanted you here. So it comes back to that listening to the inner mind, I suppose, which is the one what's most connected to the source. Interesting. Hi, Lynn. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Lynn. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, I agree. I was listening to just a short with is it Matthias De Stefano, the guy from South America, and he was talking about money, for instance, and he was saying that when he was younger, any time that he would make any money, he'd just immediately spend it on things that gave him joy. He'd take his friends out away for holidays, and he'd go to Disneyland, just anything that made him joyful. And people would say, well, why aren't you saving your money and investing it in something else? And he was basically saying, but that is his investment, because by being directed by his joy, he would just always make people that he was supposed to meet, and so for instance here, as soon as I do that and let go of the structures, so then I had a friend come and stay for a little while, and she does tours here to the temples. And so I had no idea what I was doing here regarding temples. I just haven't been moved to spend any time with them. But then I thought, well, I might as well while she's here. And then all of a sudden I was just being drawn into all of these different idiosyncrasies and all of these templates and things that have been coming through in my meditation, of them being reflected there in really wild ways. And then she was the one actually that gave me this book that I mentioned, that I'm going to bring up a bit later, that has just single-handedly just locked into place my entire life purpose and why I'm here in Egypt. It's just phenomenal. And why? Because I just let go. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to tune into my life purpose now. Whatever I've been doing to hold myself back, I'm ready to step in now. And I've been doing the hemi sync for about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 times a day. And it's just really been doing magical things in my mind to get me really super focused. And just to be able to tune in to all of those little signals from the universe that we're all in sync and everything's okay if we just have the intent. So, you know, yeah, it's been really fascinating. I'm so excited.
I find through experience that, odd, I'm going to put it in this way, but it's coming to my mind, that probably one of our biggest enemies, if not the biggest, but definitely one of the biggest enemies of ourselves, is control, our need to control. You know, making a decision to move abroad. I want to go there. The eye's in, I'm controlling what it is. I would like to do this or that, whatever, you know, the control business on so many levels of our life and our existence is in the way of this fluid, you know, flowing rhythm of the cosmos and the universe, because we're trying to grab something and go, this is how I wish it to be. And the universe just sits there patiently observing us, I think. We're like, okay, carry on.
It's the left side of the brain. It wants to put things in a nice, neat little box so that things are predictable and known, and it can only ever do that based on past experience. It can't bring us anything new.
No. Well, and plus, it leads to expectations, doesn't it? You know, it's like, if I control this, I can expect a certain outcome, you know, and then when that outcome doesn't arise according to our desires, we feel disappointed, upset, disturbed, angry maybe sometimes. Why has that not happened? I planned it this way. Control, control, control. And rather than go, everything is what it is, like you were saying, it's like everything's okay. Everything is okay. And we deal with things as they ripen in that moment. And what I think one of these, it's like an impulsive buyer in a way.
What's that?
It's like an impulsive buyer, somebody who's, you know, got this thing that they're walking through town and all of a sudden they look at an object and they're impulsive. It's like, okay, I want to buy it. In a way, that's not an issue. In a way, that's how it should be, because in that moment, that's perfect energy, what's flowing. We can say, okay, if somebody spends too much and they're in debt and it gives them an headache afterwards, that's different. But that impulse is saying, okay, I'm just walking gently through this scene, and all of a sudden something appears, and it's like, okay, how do I deal with that? How do I respond to it? Positive, negatively, in a neutral way, whatever it is. In that, the point is, in that moment, it ripens naturally for us, and getting into that kind of mind, not mindset, but getting into that space within us where we're not even allowing it to take place. What we're doing is we're just being present, and nature is reflecting back to us what it, in a way, it knows is beneficial for ourselves and everybody else. We've had this tendency to control everything around us, and therefore now the lesson for a lot of people is to let go of everything what they've been trying to control, where we could say they didn't need to control in the first place. But that's, you know, that's too long. That'd take too long to go into them layers of explaining why, and you know. So no, I totally get it. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, the collaborative project management process that I've been sort of exploring for quite some time, called Dragon Dreaming. One of the first steps is that you have the dreamer, which would traditionally be, I guess, like the creative director, the person who comes up with the idea of a project. And, you know, normally they would put together their plan or proposal and get the investors to, you know, finance it unless they can finance it themselves, and then find all the various staff members and so on that they need to make it. And so you have that pyramid structure. But in the dragon dreaming, they actually come in as an equal, and you start with a dreaming circle of about 6 to 8 people. And so you put your dream into the circle. I think I've told you this before. And it's like basically you put it in there and then it kind of dies. And you keep passing the idea around, and people keep adding their part till it's more of a group dream. And that can be incredibly challenging, to have your little baby go out there and then become a collaborative thing, because we have such a and like you said before, expectation of how it's going to come about. And everybody's going to have different ideas and different needs and requirements and expectations from it. And I remember I used to be involved in theatre in my early 20s, and I remember people saying the worst directors, this could be wrong, but they would say the worst directors are the ones that are directing actually their own scripts, because it's really really narrow. And as soon as you hand that over to somebody else, they're going to take it in a completely different direction. And I would find that incredibly challenging. I would want to be directing my own script.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, isn't it? It's a good example because, again, we're back to control. And it's like for our own personal needs, wherever that comes from. It's interesting because I remember, just a quick story. I was in a circumstance where I was working with several people. I happened to be in a position where I could make the decision how things went. And yet there's something magical about this energy when we use it. And there was 2 or 3 other people in that space. And I've always had the belief that regarding ideas and concepts, it doesn't matter which person it comes from. What matters is if it's the best idea to use. And I remember on this one occasion where I asked these other people what they thought about, how to do such and such. And one of them suggested how to do it. So I just laughed and said, okay, do it that way then. And they was kind of shocked. And I was laughing at it, and later on we was talking. And I knew what it was. I knew why they were shocked. It's because they expected this person to say, no, I want it doing this way. But I didn't, because what they presented was the best way, that what I thought and considered was the best idea. So I just said, okay, I'll just walk away, do it. And it worked a dream. And in that is that not the grasping of my idea or my thoughts and thinking my thoughts are always the best thoughts. They're not. In that kind of collective collaboration, whichever level it's on with people, if the energy is fluid, then the right one's presented to us. And it always turns out to be the best one, whether it's a solution or an answer or whatever it is, in creating. And we know we're in a situation where, through conditions, the external has tried to be in control and dictate and determine what should and shouldn't be created. And I look at the world now and think this is amazing, because everybody's taking, in a way, like Mark was saying, standing firm in their own knowing and in their presence and being who they are as creative beings. And in that creativity is the fluidity of the mind in harmony and alignment with the universe and cosmos. And we're witnessing it, aren't we? Across the board, everybody, the more people let go, the more harmony we create with each other and globally on a planetary scale. Interesting stuff. Hi, Margaret. Thanks for joining us. Yay, it's lovely to have you with us. So, yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? covering these layers and looking at the different facets and the best way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, where does that need to control come from? I mean, it to me, it just comes straight out of all of the, you know, the childhood trauma that leaves us in situations where we had no control. And so then we just recreate whatever we can as adults to try and maintain control. But in the process, it's just repeating old patterns that aren't actually helpful. So then, you know, part of the letting go is you know, needing to get into the deep emotional and shadow work as well. And it's interesting how that comes into leadership. That, you know, as I'm looking more into holistic business practices and things like that, and how I can assist people to be like real leaders, so much of that comes in tending to the parts of them that are overly controlling, that actually stunts the progress and of processes. And so then it's really, you know, the best way to be leaders is to tend to all of our own inner wounds and our inner childs and all of that kind of stuff, so that we can come into that space as whole human beings and see the beauty and the value of everybody else without it threatening our own self-worth. And so then, you know, suddenly I'm seeing so much stuff around emotional intelligence, and, you know, how we really go about that, and how we can see where our own little poison darts are, so that we can pull them out.
Yeah.
It's a big job.
It is a big job. Very. I mean, and it's constant, isn't it? It's kind of, it's happening across the board for humanity, individually and collectively. And yeah, getting in and transforming and dispelling and dissecting whatever we do with all those various facets and conditions and emotions. And, you know, one of the ones I shouldn't say I like, but I find something humorous about it, is opinions. We have this tendency to grasp our own opinions due to the conditioning. Again, back to previous conditioning. And most of the time we don't realize, we're not observing our mind sufficiently, because we've grasped so much, we've tightened up. And when we kind of, as in that process of letting go, we start loosening up, and we become more kind of flexible and fluid. I love the flexibility of consciousness, because it leaves everything open for so many possibilities and potentials. But it's difficult to get that. I understand where it may be difficult to get that flexibility of consciousness or awareness, because the mind is tightened up in order to be in control over our life, so to speak, and all the areas of our life. So it's this domino effect, isn't it? We let go of one thing, it gives us a bit of space, a bit of clarity, then we can see another area, and we go, okay, let me look at that area, and we start transforming that energy, let go of it, and so on. Eventually, this emptiness starts to show itself, clearing the room, and it becomes empty. And in that emptiness is, I don't know, it's liberation and joy and beauty. And we see it in all things, but it's a never-ending process. Well, no, so I'm going to correct myself here. It's not a never-ending. I think we can get to a point, well, clearly we can, where we can empty ourselves of everything. And once we've done that, funny enough, that's when it becomes very delicate, because then there's a need, or there's a thought to protect that emptiness, because we want to protect that clarity, we want to protect that clear mind after we've let go of, everything in our world, in our inner and outer world, what we understand it to be. So it just keeps kind of, it's like this revolving door for letting go. But I'm a big believer, Tony, that we're rapidly approaching that point now where, in the end, like a room was filled up, it was empty in the beginning when it was first built. And I think that's what we're like. We've filled our space up, and eventually we can get it to a point where it's completely empty again. And what we put in it from that point will be thoughts of creativity and expressions with the freedom of the light of the soul. And I'm going to have to be careful because I'm going to start drifting here. So I'm going to stop at that point. Because hello to Patrick. Nice to see you, Patrick. Thanks for joining us. Anybody got any thoughts or questions or what you've experienced, like Tony says, with your letting go, and you want to share us, please do. Over to you, Tony.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think like one of the biggest things to let go is the need to be right. You know, we've just so been sold that. And I remember as children, you know, I don't know if you ever had that bit where you realized that you'd said something really stupid, but you would defend it until you're black and blue in the face, because to admit defeat was just, there was something like, it was deathly. So we would just always have to defend our stance. You know, we've seen it, of course, in the last few years, creating phenomenal social issues and stuff. I mean, you know, when the whole COVID narrative started, I lost close to 90% of my friends because they were right. And I didn't agree.
Yeah.
And I still don't. And so, you know, what's going to happen now as, you know, more and more truth comes to light, you know, it's going to be really difficult for the people that had their fists up in the air saying, no, we're right, you're wrong. And at some point, they're going to discover that the truth just isn't what they thought it was. And when it gets to that bit, I think there's going to be a lot of crumbling of human psyche, because, you know, when our identity is built on our ideas and what we stand for and the various hashtags that we fight for and the various little memes that we have around our Facebook profiles, you know, we're just built on construct after construct after construct of like the latest thing that is the thing to put your fist up for righteously. But most of it is just fabricated out of nothing. And so what happens when all the fabrications fall apart and people haven't taken the time or had the opportunity to actually just let everything fall apart and say, well, what am I in all of this really? And how much of this is me? And how much of this is external constructs that have been force-fed into my brain? So I like the idea of just accepting everything and believing nothing. And for me, I don't quite see that the room is empty. I just see it as full of potentials. And as all of the mistruths and misaligned potentials fall away, then out of what's left, then I can start to construct something else. So I kind of am constantly creating this roadmap, but it just keeps shifting, you know. But it's nice to have some kind of anchor, so we're not just in this turbulence, but the anchor needs to be buoyant enough that we can you know, shift our direction and focus properly where we need to.
I liken it, interesting, Tony, because I liken it to a flexible stay on a boat. It's like rigid, a wire and cable, what's rigid, it's holding the mast up, for example. So it's serving its purpose by being rigid, yet it's flexible enough to blow when the winds start coming up, you know. And I think that's, for me, that's like our mind, that's like our awareness. It can be strong and focused, and that's correct. And it can also be flexible, and that's correct. We need them two things. And then, of course, it takes us back into the middle way again. And looking at these aspects of letting go, the way I've always perceived it is on layers, facets, or levels, whichever way, you know, it can be described. And I think we can understand it better, and we can understand the letting go process better when we approach it not so much in a systematic fashion, because, you know, for most people, it's not possible, because everything appears or can appear as chaos within one's awareness. What I perceive strongly is that we can put everything onto layers in order to give us some degree of order, in order to sort things out. So, because if we go into the scrapyard of our subconscious mind, it looks like a scrapyard. Everything was thrown in there. You open that door and it's like, my God, you know, it's like the one room in the space where we've chucked everything in. What we've refused to look at, we refuse to acknowledge. Like when you was a child, like you described it. No, want me, I didn't do it. You know, till you blew in the face. That is in the scrapyard within the subconscious mind. Because we didn't accept the simplicity of the experience in that moment. But go into these kind of layers, and it's only mine, and everybody's going to perceive it in their form. But we can put the letting go on the physical level, for example, the mental, the emotional, you know, and we can start looking at those areas individually. And immediately what will take place is we'll see the interconnectedness between them all. And that starts to unravel the truth of what we thought was chaos is actually clear to our mind if we observe it with, you know, a degree of, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to use the word clarity again, but, you know, rather than everything appear as chaos, there's order to it all. But we just have to go in there and go, okay, that belongs there. That's okay. And it's kind of like we're sorting everything out. And as we're sorting it out, we're transforming all those energies. And then we come to this point where, when we look at societal conditions, if we look at that, and we can see, okay, it's a title, it's a header, it's societal conditions. And yet, when we kind of take our awareness into it, that's multi-tiered and multi-layered, and it's filled with so many facets, what we've been affected by, which we've got to then transform and go, okay, what I believe to be true 5 years ago, I'm seeing it again with fresh eyes, and I'm looking at it. Wow, this is amazing, because I was totally out, you know, not out of order, but my truth, what I was thinking was incorrect. Now I'm seeing it, and we're going to do it by seeing the evidence. And what I mean by that is by going into our mind, going into our awareness, clearing some of the space, and then we go, okay, now I can see what's going on a bit, you know, a bit better. But it's interesting that it's all on layers for me, but it can appear as chaos. Interesting.
It certainly is. So maybe we could have a look at some of the challenges of actually the letting go process, and what stops us from letting go. In my experience, a big part of it is actually that our identity, I think, can be very, very caught up in certain things, the story of who we are, the story of our experiences, things like that. And when I used to do a lot of theta healing, and when we were doing that's one of the processes that I stopped doing, because you're acting as a healer as opposed to a facilitator. So I kind of stopped working in that kind of way. But it was great training. But one of the things that we do is, you know, if you're working on removing entities from somebody's field or something like that, or you might be looking at past life stuff, whatever you're seeing, you wouldn't actually tell the person about it, because as soon as they identify with a story, doesn't matter how much clearing work you do with them, their subconscious will just recreate all the patterns based on what you see. And so I still, to this day, if I see something in someone's field, I won't tell them about it, because there's not really any point. It's counterproductive. But I had one person many years ago, and I saw something in her field, and when I finished the work, I didn't really want to talk to them about it because of that reason, and they were so insistent that eventually I just had to relent and say, okay, well, I saw it, and I'd seen this huge gargoyle kind of creature and a massive serpent, and immediately I related them to an externalization of childhood trauma that had basically created a vampirish kind of energy, an energy vampire kind of entity and they were attached to her. And when I said that, this person just kind of freaked out and said, wow, I've been drawing those creatures since I was a child. And so they were so identified with it. It's almost like it becomes their little inner child baby. And letting go of the story is huge. I know a lot of people that are in chronic illness, whether it's mental illness or physical illness, and most of the conversation ends up coming back to that illness or unwellness or imbalance. It's almost like without that, they don't have anything to talk about. And so trying to steer them away from that into potentials can actually drive them into a space of fear. And so, there's the addiction to struggle. There's a subconscious addiction to struggle. And it can be really difficult to look that beast in the eye because it makes us responsible for our own suffering. And, I did all my work with my beast and my little, my addiction to struggle. And it's kind of still there a bit. And I'm still doing a lot of clearing out. Like, it's a lot easier to say, oh, well, it's just my bad luck.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And Tony, well, especially that aspect, what you've just said, addicted to struggle. The mind is so subtle, and those hidden layers, and we go back to the letting go process, don't we? It's like constantly peeling the layers off or going in and looking for those aspects where our mind has been attached. We've either been attached to it, we've been addicted to it, and until we see it and spot it, most occasions, the conscious mind is not aware that it's even going on. For me, 75% of what's going on in the subconscious mind, most individuals are totally oblivious to. The amount of things through all the experiences, what we've had, not just in this lifetime, but previous lifetimes, what we've ignored or run from or, fought against, all of them, which equals one thing and boils down to one thing, the failure to accept, a lack of acceptance of a circumstance or truth or experience, has gone within the subconscious area of our mind, and it's deeply embedded. So sometimes, it's like, it's almost as if we know there's an ocean. We have a tendency to swim along the surface or, go walking on, or just wet my feet. And until we dive in and dive to the very bottom of that ocean, we're just not going to be totally free from the conditions what we're carrying, because we've had so many of them. And what's interesting for me is we can bring previous lifetimes and karmic aspects and our karmic cycle into play with this, because it's clear we're clearing some karma, individually and collectively, group souls, etc., without going down that route. But again, we're talking about the depth we have to go to, how many layers we have to kind of stand in front of within our subconscious awareness, and remove them, dissolve them, whatever term we give it, in order to give us the freedom and liberation of our own light It's almost like we started off with this beautiful radiant light, and the conditions have just gradually condensed it and overwhelmed it. And the beauty of this change now, it's been, dispelled with. It's like, okay, I'm shaking this off. I've had enough of it. When we look at it as souls journeying through evolution, it takes a whole different, route completely, and gives us a whole different perception on it all. Our souls traveling through the universe, or traveling through whatever we call this thing, reality, and maybe tens and hundreds and thousands of previous incarnations. And I don't mean incarnations of the past as we think the past, with this timeline we're walking. I mean, if everything is in the present, then those lifetimes are happening simultaneous. So this is why it's all happening in the now. And in any given moment, it's like, okay, there's a circumstance, there's a situation ripened. I need to look at that, because there it is now, because it might not come back. The universe could be giving us a sign and opportunity that goes, look, we're bringing this up so you can clear it and get rid of it. But until we get to the source of that issue, any issue, we'll still be affected by it. We've got to get to that source. I think the most important thing we're letting go is we must go to the source of it, whether it's through shadow work, through, if you're on a workshop or a retreat or whatever it is, or you're doing your own personal thing. It's the source is where it's all happening. But it can be difficult to move the mind through those emotions, through that mental energy, and get to that source. But the benefits are phenomenal. Wow.
Yeah, and well, maybe we can move towards some of the tools then, because what you're touching on is actually a lot of what's kind of come up for us in the last few years. And one of the aspects that I really started working with about 3 years ago was the ancestral realm, because I was finding that working on myself and other people, that a lot of stuff was really sticking, or it would seem to clear and then it would come back. And it wasn't until I went into the ancestral realm and cleared it there that it would actually start to shift with some long-standing kind of benefits. And some other things that I found were, there's a lot of energy vampires and parasites and so on that are feeding off, the energy or the loosh or whatever you want to call it, from our struggle in relation to certain things. Yeah. So, I would find that clearing those parasites would make a massive, massive difference. And I would actually need to get in a lot of energetic help, because they can be really, really strong, especially in the ancestral field. And also, we hold so many old binds and curses and old belief systems and structures. There's a lot of things on that level that need to be kind of cleared as well. And our trauma, we've got little trauma anchors, little arrows or barbs in our bodies or in our ethereal bodies. There's so many different bits and pieces. But this is where, doing things like muscle testing and stuff can be really helpful, to just go straight to the source and see what's there.
Yeah.
And on what level. And just one other aspect with it as well is a lot of the things that we're working with, say someone's got an issue with relationships or with money or with business or with being in a physical body or whatever it is, all of those different things, they all have their own energy fields as well, and a lot of those have been perverted.
Yeah.
Look at the structure of money. When you get to the original structure of money, it was sacred, and the energy of it wants to be in service. The energy of AI wants to be in service. The energy of food production, all of these things, they want to be in service with us, and they've all been infiltrated and inverted. And so doing the healing work on those aspects themselves also on a more collective level can can help our relationship with it.
Yeah, totally agree. Talking on, I'm pleased you've mentioned it. Talking on muscle testing, I just want to say to everybody, if I may, I had a most amazing session with Tjoni in the week, muscle testing. Tjoni guided me into within the body and to scan it and look at it, etc., etc. And I can't tell you how beneficial it was and what it's been like since. So I'm so pleased because I wanted to mention it tonight anyway. So thanks for that, Tjoni. Anybody else any muscle testing and stuff like that, get in touch with Tjoni. Anyway, I'd like to just pick up on what you were saying there, because again, as always, it's interesting, isn't it? There was an aspect where materializations, I think my understanding is this, that we know we're energy, we know it's, without going into the aspect of energy being, form and formlessness, trying to keep it a bit simple. We know thoughts are a living energy. What I liken it to often is, once a thought has been created, if we don't utilize that thought, because that's what it wants, it needs utilizing, it needs kind of using, we've created it. And if we decide not to use it and put it into action, then it's got to go somewhere. And I was liking it to small particles on our shoulders, what we carry, unutilized thoughts. And they turn into these like blacksmith's anvils, and we're weighed down by them. And if we're not mindful, they can be used by other forces, and also they can manifest, that energy can manifest itself, in terms of anger, upset, aggression, etc. So I think this is an important area when we're talking about letting go. And briefly, I'm going to put it with what's going on around the world. We see so much anger and violence. Young kids fighting and doing the most horrendous things to each other. Adults encouraging each other to be in conflict. That's without mentioning the military and wars, etc. All cases of expressing energy in an aggressive, negative fashion. I think, and it's not that we have a responsibility, I'm not going to go down that road, but I think by doing what people are doing in the spiritual space globally, it's benefiting that energy. It's kind of healing it, it's pacifying it, it's getting it to calm down. We know the sections on the planet what don't want this sort of thing to take place. And I know I've took a bit of a leap here, but I think we have to bear in mind that there's that interconnectedness between an individual suffering and carrying what they're carrying, and how that energy can be used and manifested for negative reasons, to the global connectedness between us all. And if that thought energy is out in the space, which we can say, there's the ether, the etheric web around the planet, is filled with so much energy. What I believe collectively we are now starting to heal and clear and transform. And I'm going to pause at that point.
Well, you touched on something important actually, and that's anger. And we need anger. People see anger as a negative emotion, and I don't think it's a negative emotion. It's what happens when our needs aren't met. The issue to me arises when we don't have a productive outlet for anger.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we didn't have anger, we'd all be dead. Like, no mother would ever protect her children if, you know, she didn't arc up when somebody threatened their well-being. And but things like, you know, depression and anxiety and things like that, like they're said to be just unexpressed anger. And I've gone through all of that. I was horrendously depressed and went through major panic disorder for years. And it was because I was the nice one, and I would never stand up for myself. I would never express my anger. And then that led into passive aggression, which is, you know, incredibly destructive. And that's what happens when we don't have a voice for our anger. And so I was lucky that, you know, I did a lot of work with that, and, you know, through things like primal therapy that ended up becoming the holotropic breath work, which was just mind-blowingly powerful. And even just, you know, good old just smashing into a pillow and just screaming and cursing at you know, at the universe. Like, we've got to get it out. And I really see here, you know, we're in an environment now in Upper Egypt where, you know, people don't express their anger. And we're in a situation where, you know, it's 90% Muslim here, so, you know, there's no sex before marriage. So guys don't have an outlet for all of their energy, and they don't have an outlet for their aggression. There's no fight clubs. You know, they've got the gym, and there's a little bit of sports, but like that's kind of it.
Yeah.
There's no way for them to get stuff out. And so what do? They're insane on the road, like insane, ridiculous, like just crazy and so loud on the roads. And, you know, they don't take care of their animals. I mean, some do, but mostly they don't. You know, there's no constructive way for them to deal with it.
He's channeling it, yeah.
Right.
He's trying to give them a means to channel it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Prakashni, I hope I said your word.
I think you did.
Yeah, I found that my anger has served me in many situations. Yeah, me too. And learning how to channel that Kali energy and get her out is really phenomenal. So, you know, I've been spending some time in the temples, as I said, and I went to spend time with Sekhmet, and she's like the fierce mother and the tough love and the creativity, but also the destructor, you know, almost like similar to that kind of destructive Kali energy, I guess. And, you know, we need that. We need to be able to set up healthy boundaries, and people need to know where to meet us. And if we just let people come in, they will keep pushing and pushing and pushing until we end up collapsing or having to defend ourselves, which can be really messy. And so letting go of the need to people please and the need to be polite and nice, which we were sold.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we make ourselves sick. And so now, you know, I find I just have to be straight up with people. I actually simply don't have the energy to not put up strong boundaries. And I just have to be really straight with people. Okay, I can give you a space to be, I can give you a shoulder to cry on, but I can't talk about anything right now. Or, you know, I can't take on any mental junk right now. Or, you know, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. And just to be really, really crystal clear, so that people know where they are with us.
I think this is, if I can just interject, I think this is one of the benefits of letting go. People find a strength which they didn't know existed, or if they knew it existed, they suppressed. Having the power to say no, you know, in whatever form it comes. Mostly people now can, you know, use skillful means and still be polite and diplomatic and yet they get in their point. Of course, they're defending their space and their time and energies by saying no, by setting those boundaries. If it is setting the boundaries. So I can, totally agree with this. And I like it. I can see it more and more because we've spent a lifetime, many people thinking, oh, well, I just need to say yes every time to somebody, and we don't. Most important thing is that we protect our energies as this transition's taking place. And by doing the shadow way, by doing and opening up and expanding further, we're finding that throughout the expanse of our consciousness, and again, for some reason tonight I'm using the word clarity, we gain that clarity, what makes us feel comfortable, and in that comfortability is a degree of confidence to politely say, no, I haven't got the time to do that, or, it's not appropriate or it's not correct for me to do that at this moment in time. So it's interesting that this is kind of this subject's come up in this topic. Very. So I don't know whether you've got this. Oh, sorry, go on, Tony. You could say something.
Well, I was just going to add that, it's very comforting for people to know who you are and to not have to second guess, is that person upset about that thing? What were they thinking about? They looked at me weird sideways. Did they agree to something that they shouldn't? Like, it's exhausting. And so if we can just be straight up and just set our parameters to begin with, then we don't have to play games. And it means that potentially, well, maybe some people will decide that they don't want to be around you so much if you're not going to bend and twist to their will. Maybe those aren't the people that are supposed to be in your space. And maybe by having healthy boundaries, then you'll attract people that do appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, I totally agree with you on that. I find the new spiritual groups are more teaching people to hold back on anger, which is not realistic. Internalized anger is really awful on our mind and body. Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I think one of the biggest causes of illness, things like cancer and stuff like that in the body, it's unexpressed anger.
Yeah.
And what does it do? It just gets locked up in our systems. So
it gets locked up and then it builds up. It's the build up, which, I mean, everything is concerning, but the build up of that energy is what's worse for the body, because then it's going to manifest on the body as in the form, exactly what you said, Tony, as some kind of illness, because it's not being transformed, it's not being utilized, it's not being used. And it's got to do something. So it's going to fester and stagnate. And eventually that stagnation leads to it becoming rotten. That's going to infect some place on the body where it's stored eventually and cause the illness. So, I totally agree with it. I'm going to try your name. Pakrashni. Oh, we should go live so we can hear it verbally.
Pakrashni.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. But also, purely physiologically, I mean, if we're holding in anger and resentment, well, what's happening? It's constricting the body and it's causing stress. What's happening there? You're not digesting food properly. You've got over acidification in the stomach. You're going to end up just not being able to digest properly. You're going to end up with probably a more acid environment in the body. Everything's going to be more constricted. Your circulation's not going to work so well. You're not going to be breathing so well. Like, all of our different processes slow down when we're in contraction. And so, being able to release our anger, being able to set up healthy boundaries, being able to express ourselves and find productive ways for that. And that might be if feeling really angry with somebody, that you go to the bedroom and close the door and smash a few pillows first to get all the reactive stuff out, and then come back and talk to them later. Finding healthy ways to do all of that kind of stuff. It's do or die, actually, like, really.
Yeah, definitely. So, Tjoni, I don't know I don't know whether we're going to be wrapping up in that area, but it's this system. Is it a system? I don't know what. You're talking about. Yeah, the book. Is it a book? It is a book, is it?
It is a book. It's a book. But actually, so I'll just quickly mention just a couple of other of the tools actually that I really like for anger.
Yeah.
Just to wrap up this subject. So one of them is Kundalini yoga, and there's some really fabulous Kundalini yoga segments on YouTube that are really great for anger. And if you're suffering from anxiety, depression, panic attacks, things like that, working with the anger can actually really help to dissipate it. So there's there's some that I found if I did it 4 or 5 days in a row, my panic attacks would go from 80% down to 0, basically. Like, so really, 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 really strong. So look at Kundalini yoga. And autonomous writing, doing things like morning pages, just getting your mind out. And the same with art. I used to just be almost screaming and drawing and just finding any way to get the energy out. Smashing pillows. I love smashing pillows. Having a really good ecstatic dance, especially getting some really good heavy bass so you can really like smash your feet into the ground and just get it out. Putting your hands and feet into the earth and just screaming into the earth, because she is just such a wonderful alchemist, and she will take that energy from you and help you to transmute it. The hemisync, like I said, is really helping. Psyche is really good for balancing the left and right sides of the brain. And there's, in fact, anything where you're using the left and right side of the brain simultaneously helps to balance, even juggling. Did you know that juggling 3 balls for about 15 minutes balances the left and right side of the brain?
I didn't know this, no.
And so it enhances learning, but also it's getting the brain back into balance.
Yeah.
So I haven't tried it for anger, but in fact it would work. And just doing the shadow work, and there's a gazillion different ways to do the shadow work. So
yeah.
Oh, so that's some of the things that I use.
Helpful guidance on letting go. Then I'm going to throw one in because we're talking about letting go anyway. I was shown a specific technique years ago from Spirit, which I use all the time. And we've done retreats, small retreats on it, on Zoom, weekend retreats. And it's basically making a certain preparation, preparing the mind, and literally taking awareness into a space within oneself, and doing this like kind of technique from there. And it's interesting because it's almost like we're facing the issues as they ripen, and merely by being present, by the mind being present, or awareness and the light of awareness being present, the transformation and letting go takes place. And it's interesting because we've had 1 or 2 requests recently. So we've decided we're going to do another letting go retreat, possibly at the end of March or beginning of April. We're not sure yet. But that's the technique I use. It's like I sit there and I can take my mind into it, and the light and obviously I can't give the technique away because it's very specific. But the light works its magic, and it's so beneficial. It's phenomenal. But what I wanted to say as well, Tony, on top of that, putting that to one side anyway, is I think any technique what anybody uses for letting go is the right one. If it works, it works. That's all what matters. Yeah. And whatever title or term anybody gives it, shadow work, letting go process, this route, that, whatever it is, doesn't matter. If it's achieving its objective and helping clear energy, so that the mind can have that freedom and liberation. That for me is priceless, whichever route they're taking. So please tell us about this.
Absolutely. And just one last sentence on that. I think the most important thing is the intent.
Yes.
If you've got the right intent, you're just directing the universe to work with you regardless on the tools.
Yeah. Agree. Brilliant. Thank you. Right then, so we're going to just move on to this section.
Yeah, so I just really wanted to share this before we finish up, because I feel like this is a new exploration for me. This book was given to me, as I mentioned before, by a friend who was staying with me. And it was so funny. I've been working on this idea of an intentional business community now for about 30 years. And I've had the ideas, I've tried to get it off the ground so many times, and it's like the consciousness around it, I just haven't had enough people to be able to actually move it forwards. And I've even tried it here, and it's like it takes a certain mindset, and the people with the mindset are too thin on the ground, I think, actually, to do it in a physical space. So I think I need to move it more online. And I feel like I actually need to write a book about it first so people can get the ideas. But so then I'm reading these, and it's like all of the ideas in it, it's like it was just written from my own brain. But what they actually go into is
what's the name?
Sacred Commerce.
Yeah, so, who's the authors, Tjoni? Can we put the authors up?
Yeah, so it's Ayman Sawaf and Rowan Gabriel.
Right, okay, we'll put them up afterwards then.
Yeah, and they're also talking about the ancient way of commerce, and how it was considered a sacred process, because basically it was taking what had been a structure of, if somebody had something that you wanted, you'd wage war on them to get it.
Right.
And so it was part of the evolution of consciousness, of starting to receive that, but with a form of exchange. So you have sacredity, you're generating peace, you're generating communications, you're generating community, you're generating all of these structures. And it goes into great detail. I'm only about a third of the way through it. And that's a different one actually to this. But okay, that's interesting to see as well. Thank you, Eva.
So I'm going to pause. I'm going to disappear for one moment. I'm sorry. You carry on telling us about the book.
All right, cool. All right, I will do. And so apparently this idea came to Egypt during the time of Queen Hatshepsut. Now, Queen Hatshepsut's temple is about half an hour walk that way. And I have been drawn to her temple since before we got to Egypt, but I've never actually been there, even though it's so close. And so apparently she was reigning for about 20 years, and they had the merchant priesthood, and they were the ones that were responsible for basically mediating the energy of the marketplace. And most people at that time were illiterate, and they weren't incredibly smart. There was a lot of greed and jealousy and all of that kind of stuff. And so the merchant priests would actually situate themselves in the marketplace with their eyes closed and just quietly work with the energies. And so they would tune into different energies, like jealousy, for instance, and tune into the energy of it, the consciousness of it, and mitigate that and basically alchemize it into something positive. So they were highly trained. And so the book goes into all of these various ideas and the way that the sacred commerce was kind of playing out during the time of her reign, But then subsequently, somebody else came in for I think about 30 years. I can't remember my history. I'm not very good with that bit yet. When I finish the book, I'll be able to come back with a bit more detail about that. And and so her predecessor basically undid all of her good work. But then his son, I think it was, came back and restored all of the work that she'd done. And apparently the temples were built on the ley lines, and the churches and so on were built on the ley lines. And then because of that, then the actual trade routes followed the pathways between all of those different sacred spaces. So I found that really interesting. And welcome back. So could you actually hear any of that, or?
No, I couldn't hear any of it, but I will catch it.
So you can watch it on the replay. So yes. All of our audience know all about the book now, so they can fill you in on the details. But I'm just so excited, and I was just saying that that basically it's talking about the merchant priesthood. Yeah. And that they first came to be known in Egypt at Queen Hatshepsut's temple, which is about 30 minutes walk that way.
That's incredible.
And so all of this is talking about the history of the sacredity of commerce that was all in this, 3 or 4 kilometer stretch. Everybody that they're talking about, all of their temples and their tombs and everything, it's all here.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious. So I'm going to keep reading and keep studying, but basically my ideas around business and what I've been trying to generate, it's what it was. Yeah. Way back then.
Yeah. So absolutely. It's not. It is strange, isn't it? It's almost. There's so many layers to that. There's the karmic connection. You're there present in that space. The book's presented itself. There's so many other aspects. We can finish on this note because I think the more we let go, we're back to the source, aren't we? The more we let go of anything, it doesn't matter what we let go of. It's just letting go of it. The more the universe guides us, the more spirit guides us, cosmic beings, the cosmos, and in its essence, it's like our soul finally attunes to the harmony of cosmic vibrations, to the reality of nature, the true nature of reality itself. Amazing. Tjoni, thank you so much.
I can't tell you how excited I am right now. And yeah, so this is really the proverbial flip has happened. And we've been talking about letting go for a couple of sessions now. Yeah. And now I'm really ready to then talk about what we're moving into.
Absolutely.
So I'd really love to explore that in the coming sessions, which we will chat about again soon.
I'm more than happy. Whatever it is, it sounds good to me. Awesome. What do you say in this moment? It's almost, we know we're in 2025. We've got this. We know there's a lot happening on many layers, many levels. So I'd just like to thank everybody what's joined us. Feel inspired, everybody. Go with the inspiration of that life. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And if you've got any thoughts, any comments, you can still put them in the comments or put them over onto Tjoni's site or Menorca Consciousness Group. A special big thank you, as always, Tjoni. It's always stimulating, informative, everything about our conversations and what you say and what you bring. I nearly said what you bring to the table. I don't know, it's not often I use. I don't know where that came from. It's like what you bring to the table. I'd never use that. Oh my goodness. I was just thinking, Colin, what do you bring to the table, actually?
I'm bringing a spiritual poker game. Let's bring it on.
Yeah.
Thank you well, I was just going to say thank you so much for having me again. And thank you again to Ava. She's always just rock solid, holding the fort, keeping us all together. So thank you so much. Yeah, a final thought is just to let go of the fear. Like, we have nothing to fear. We're so held. The universe is just holding us so much, so strongly at the moment. And, I say this from this, space of just going, I've got no idea where home is. Like, none of us have any idea where home is. And we're just, just trying to research the entire political arena and all of that kind of stuff over the world. And in the end, it's like, none of it matters. We've just got to come back to what inspires us, keep having these conversations, keep uncovering what our reality is and what we're choosing to infuse it with, and let go of the control, let go of the fear, let go of trying to figure it out, and just go with the inspiration.
Yeah. And on that note, thank you so much, Tjoni. Brilliant stuff. Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. Amazing stuff. You can find, where can people find you, Tjoni?
The easiest place would be to start at my website, which is tjoni.com, tjoni.com. And on the contact page, you can then get out to, my Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, and InSpiralOutLoud is my podcast space. Malkata Arts Retreat is our gorgeous space here in Luxor, where we're doing arts residencies and stuff like that. So yeah.
Do you offer any online therapies or anything, Tjoni?
Well, I do, and that's been really evolving incredibly quickly as well in the last few months. So it's been kind of expanding. But yeah, I'm doing a lot of work one-on-one and also group work. So I've got a few organizations that I'm working with as well, and we're just, working on the organizations to thanks, Margaret. We're working with organizations to help clear, blockages, and to help attune them to their highest purpose and all of that kind of stuff, like really merging the purpose and profit, and really helping with that. So yeah, a lot of that work. And if people want to do it in person, just come to Luxor.
Yes. So anybody wants to jump on this, and any therapists or have you inspired to get in touch with Tjoni, please do. She's doing amazing stuff over there, and not just there, on other planes. As far as Menorca Consciousness Group is concerned, I'm back on with a live presentation later on, 10:30 UK time. It's the Edify Your Soul magazine, which I've been blessed to be invited to be a part of. So there's a presentation. There's about, I think, the content this month is really interesting in this issue. It'll be released, as far as I know, it'll be released later. You'll be able to grab hold of the magazine instantly online. Laurie's, who's running it, has been doing a fantastic job. Myself and Ava have just been in the background helping a little touch. But the articles and content, what's in there, this issue, it's about grief, it's about awakenings, etc. So join us if you can later. As far as Menorca Consciousness Group is concerned, Pauline Barfather is amazing. She does weekly meditations from Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. UK till 5:30 UK. So if you want to learn meditation or just sit in the peace and quiet, etc., Paulie's just kindly offered and doing these every weekday between Monday and Friday. Tuesday evening, we've got a demonstration of mediumship with Matt Grogan. We're looking forward to that. UK 7:30 again. So everybody's welcome to join us for that. If anybody doesn't know, A to Z Index of Spiritualism a guide to spiritual, psychic and spiritual development. That's available. Oh, it's just, Ava, you're so fast. Right. So lots of interesting stuff on it. Very, very deep in parts. If you like to dive deep, or if you just want to, you know, paddle along the surface, it's okay. It's in the book, so to speak. Without that, that's it. So hopefully, we're looking forward to meeting Tjoni again next week. We're going to discuss it, and we'll make sure everybody knows about it. We'll put it out there. Once again, everybody, I think we've covered the lot. Blah, blah, blah. Can't stand doing the notifications. Anyway, yeah, just check out Tony's site, check out MCG, Monoka Consciousness Group. And thank you so much for bringing your light into this space. Like once again, Tjoni, amazing conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And so helpful. Thank you, everybody. So wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully, we'll see you later on in a couple of hours on Edify Your Soul. Thank you, Tjoni. Lots of love to everybody. We'll see you all soon. Great.